Well, we had an episode planned of cards to buy for February, and then the Commander panel blew everything up. It's not going to change a ton, but we did add those cards so we can discuss what to do about any cards that may be affected by all these announcements. But past that, we got some good cards at all-time lows to discuss.
I guess low-risk pickups, except for some of the cards that we're about to talk about. You're going to be like, no, you guys are dumb, but we'll get to that in a second. Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat. Jake and Joel or Magic are brought to you by Card Conduit. That's a great spot to go to sell your unwanted singles and turn them into cash. They do all the buy listing for you, so you don't have to lift a finger. Actually, you do have to lift a finger. You have to send the cards to Card Conduit. Also, our wonderful sponsor, Dragon Shield. We've been protecting our cards with Dragon Shield sleeves for as long as I can remember, which I started playing in 2009. Also TCG Player, which is a spot that you can go to buy your cards. If you haven't heard of TCG Player, it's a massive marketplace where tons of people go to sell cards at competitive prices. And then finally Moxfield, which is where you go to organize your decks and share them with your friends.
Jake, I think there are three main cards on everyone's mind right now as should I buy these targets? Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, and Mana Crypt. We're going to start by talking about those three cards, their associated risk, and whether or not we think in that April unbanning window that's supposed to happen, whether they're going to come off that list. Jake, Dockside Extortionist, let's start here. What do you think?
Of the banned cards, recently banned cards that we're going to talk about, I think this one is the least likely. It seems like one of those cards that obviously will be classified as a game changer. However, you will see that the price did get very low until recently. You do have people buying them up, I guess in anticipation that it will get unbanned, and then you would have, you know, a lot of people sprinting to put this deck or this card back in their decks, or, you know, specifically like CEDH, or, you know, a high power format like from what we learned, like a bracket 4 deck, right?
Right.
Where it's like there are no suggestions on things to cut. It's really just like you self-police it. It's part of your own kind of like pod. Or, you know, in the case where you are sitting down with people, if you're like, hey, we're playing bracket 4, people should know, okay, there are going to be game changers in here. These are going to be optimized decks that are powerful. This is something that we typically see in the Magic the Gathering space, right? Is people speculate on news. You know, if this big new system came out that is talking about, oh, these are how decks are going to be analyzed, people are going to be thinking, oh, well, if in CEDH, you know, I'm allowed to do whatever I want, then maybe I do buy these cards that were recently banned just in case. Like $8.79 for a lightly played copy of Dockside is very low risk if that card gets unbanned and goes back up to, you know, 40 or 50 bucks or higher, right?
Well, and it's also, the risk has to be looked at inversely as well, as like if we get to April and they don't unban Dockside, it's not going to force the price lower. This price has already bottomed. We've seen what this price is going to do when the card is relegated to basically cube and kitchen table play only. That's it.
Right.
But you can see the speculation that Jake's talking about. Look at the purchases. Look at these dates over here. 2/4, 2/5, 2 copies, 1 copy sold on the 6th, 2 copies sold on the 7th, 2 copies on the 8th. But then we get to the 11th. Boom, 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 12, boom, 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 boom. These just start flying off the shelves, and so that's why we wanted to cover it today in this video.
Foil Docksides and stuff like that now. And
well, when you go to target copies like this, you just want a copy, sure, go for a low risk base copy. Y'all, a lot of these prices have jumped. You'll see some of these market prices 16, 17. It's gonna be pretty much up to your own risk assessment and your own, you know, how much do I want to potentially lose? What is that number for you? We've seen what the base will be of a Dockside Extortionist based copy that gets as low as it possibly can, 11 bucks. That's just like pushed down into obscurity price there. Now it's jumping back up. So can you get it closer to that floor? Will it go beyond that floor? If it does get banned, it's unlikely to me. And so it's just about the price that you can pick it up and what you think is safe.
You know, we're alerting you on low risk pickups or like all-time lows. but it's almost like a market watch kind of thing where we're letting you know right now that there are people that are buying these, whether it's a fool's errand or not, will be seen in the future. But it is definitely the kind of thing that people are out there purchasing these. This is another one that's pretty crazy. This one was pretty low. Jeweled Lotus, or as we like to call it around here, J-Lo.
Jeweled Lotus. What's up?
Jeweled Lotus. It got pretty low, and then it has had a massive jump as well. You have it pretty much double in price. We go from like 25 to 50s. Yeah, that's a pretty big jump. Now, the thing about Jeweled Lotus, I see this as more low risk than Dockside.
Yeah.
Reason being, it's a card that was designed for Commander. It's a card that late game is kind of a nothing burger when you draw it.
By the person, designed for Commander by the person who's in charge of the Commander panel. I'll just put that out there too.
Yeah, it's a card that I feel like it powers out certain commanders super early. So yes, if you get it in a hand, your hand's like Soul Ring, Signet, Jeweled Lotus. You're doing something big. If you have a big commander that's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and play my 5-cost commander on turn 1. There are things about Jeweled Lotus that are like, man, that's really, really busted. But yeah, it's a card that is only useful for one specific purpose. It's not like Dockside, where you play Dockside and you get an entire pile of treasure and you can just do everything. You just do your whole hand. Jeweled Lotus is for your commander. It's a one-time use, like you can get it back, but once you use it, you know, it just gets sacked, goes to your graveyard.
Yeah, so looking at sales of the card, you can see the low volume that was moving through December and through January. By the time we get to the announcement, this is the hottest version, y'all. This is the textured foil, top of the line, most expensive pimped out Jeweled Lotus that you can get. All-time high, looking like 600, nearly 600 it got up to, and tanked down to around 300. Popped back up when we found out that there was a Commander panel going to happen and that unbans might be a possibility. That's what you're seeing reflected here. And now you're seeing that just sort of like track back down as the hype of that speculation wears off. And you'll probably see short term, like we're seeing here with more sales going through, this price being kicked from 290s up to 330s over the course of a day or so. That's not insignificant for a big old card like this. And so there's those two different directions you can take it, right? For pickup is you can go shoot for the base copy, which got as low as $25. And right now you can get a copy for like 50 near mint, 50, 60s. It's probably going to be more like 60s now, y'all. 70s even by the time you're watching this. Because this card is, I agree with Jake as far as the possibility of any of these three major cards being unbanned. I think Jeweled Lotus is at the top of the list. Let's take a look at the Mana Crypt as well. Lowest value here on your Mana Crypts, low cost. You're looking at the list version here. We got 52s. We got, it was up near 100s. Sorry, 200s. The announcement happens and it just tanks skis. Jake, as far as these three go, I feel like Mana Crypt's kind of right in the middle. I know Dockside, I'm pretty sure, is not going to get unbanned. J-Lo, I think there's a pretty good chance it does. What do you think about Mana Crypt?
The same kind of thing. Mana Crypt was one of these cards that was as high as like $150, right?
Yeah.
And it is now, you know, yesterday I was seeing prices at around 55. I'm already seeing them at 60s now.
This is the one I would be targeting if I decided I wanted to speculate here. $100, $100 for the foil special guest version. That's pretty, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, that is pretty sweet. It was very expensive, and then it had a massive fall off. I think that this is just organic speculation. It's been part of Magic forever, where players hear news and they go and speculate on it, and then it's the changing of the guard. There's different news, and then it's the same thing. I bet all of the biorhythms and coalition victories are just, you know, right where they were when everybody was buying based on the speculation of these bans. I mean, look at this guy. Geez, this thing, that thing was probably even higher at some point. So
550, wow. You're looking at this one. You've obviously got the Neon Ink, Cosmium Ink, whatever versions that are going to be basically untouched by all this, just on rarity alone and what the card is alone. But looking at the special guest copies, looking at your invention copies, that sort of represents the high end if you want to speculate on those. Looking at your list copies, double masters, eternal masters, that kind of represents the low end. It's looking like at time of making this video, you could get yourself a Mana Crypt for like 60 bucks. You could get yourself a J-Lo for like 75, maybe 60, depending on if you're just aiming at base copy. And then Dockside's still down in that like 20s, 30s range for base copies over there. So that's kind of the coverage on those 3 cards and where we think they fall as far as risk goes. So Jake, let's get into some cards that are just straight up great pickups, all-time lows. The price has been driven down naturally through reprints. One of those for this month, Jake, is Black Market Connections. This is an enchantment, a black and 2 other. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you choose 1 or more. And that's kind of the place where this card goes over the top, is that or more. You can just go for it and do all 3 every time if you want. Yes, you're losing 6 life if you do all 3, but you can offset that in Commander. You can either create a treasure token for a life, you can draw a card for 2 life, or you can create a 3/2 changeling creature token and lose 3 life. This card has been very expensive. 20s, 25s you can see for our Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate copies. We saw it reprinted in Commander Caverns of Ixalan. That copy is super affordable now. And then we also saw it in that Assassin's Creed set, which you may remember was one of the sets that nobody... I know at least one person who bought cards from this last year.
Yes, I know at least one person who has an all Assassin's Creed deck that doesn't run a Soul Ring in it, and he loves to tell us about it. This is a card that is very good. I don't really, I mean, you've already read the card, you explained what it does. It's a very good black card, and it's just at a nice low point from where it was. Yeah, but there's a lot going on with Black Market Connections, that's for sure. Next up, we have Everybody Lives, and you can see that there's 4 different versions of here. Everybody Lives. For 1 white and 1 other, instant speed. All creatures gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Players gain hexproof until end of turn. Players can't lose life this turn, and players can't lose the game or win the game this turn. It's just an oh shit button. It's got like Teferi's Protection kind of vibes, or like one of those like, oh god, something's about to hit the fan. We're going to cast an Everybody Lives. And this was one of the most anticipated cards that came out of Doctor Who. I remember everybody going kind of crazy about this one. And yeah, we're down from an all-time high to a much more, you know, kind of reasonable space with it.
Looking at the Surge foil, this thing was nearing 20 bucks and has started to fall off, you know, looking at, you know, 25s total. It's just been a solid trend downward for this card. And so I think it's time for it to be on people's radar, because it's not, you know, commanding the price that it did there for a while. But it is still a Universes Beyond card, and we know that there's at least a little bit more difficulty reprinting these from the specific IP sets.
It did have an all-time high of around $40, but that's when it first came out, so take that with a big grain of salt. It just kind of speaks to the perpetual kind of hype phase that we kind of live in MTG here. You know, you get a card that comes out, right when it comes out, everybody's extremely hyped on it. They want to overpay for it. And then what ends up happening is we get, you know, years later where Joel and I are talking about it now, and things are different. And the card price settles out, and you start to see where the market actually wants that card to be and what kind of actual demand there is for the card. But if you are in white and you need redundancy and you like this effect, it's probably a good time to go ahead and put this one on your radar.
Jake, Bribery is a card that was scarce. We pretty much had that Mercadian Masks copy for the longest time. We've got Secret Lair versions now. We've got Judge promo versions. But the relevant reprint here is the Commander Masters reprint that took this card, made it a mythic in rarity, and gave it a foil etched version as well. So at this point, a very mean blue sorcery is much more in line with a pickup price that people can afford.
God, I remember this was one that that everybody was playing back in the day, dude. You know, when Commander was in its infancy.
OG Commander days, this was a boogeyman for sure. 2 blue, 3 other to search an opponent's library and get a creature and put it right onto your battlefield. Done.
Go grab their biggest threat, or like grab their indestructible thing. Like, what you would do with this is you would go grab like a Blightsteel, you know, like you just take their biggest thing and beat them up with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely had a big adjustment down, and this is what happens when you satiate scarcity. Hard to tell if it goes lower, but again, when you're not buying the all-time high and you're waiting, you are often rewarded in MTG. Yes.
Yeah. These risks are low. Risks are low. $15 for a Judge promo copy of it. Your base copies are going to be low risk.
Chroma's Will. This was a card that came out of Commander Legends and was arguably like one of the best cards that came out of that set. Chroma's Will, you have one white, one other, or one white, three other for an instant. Choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. And creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. Very offensive ability. Or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. The versatility on this card is really attractive to players. I'm not surprised in the slightest that this card has really taken off and become a very powerful commander card. It also has kind of like that oh shit button heroic intervention kind of vibe where it's like, oh, we got to eat through the Teferi's protection. Now we got to eat through the Achroma as well. Yeah. White has a lot of effects like this that are backbreakers that are just like, they turn board wipes into a one-sided kind of thing where you're just not affected. Like if you're in white, play these effects and you will be able to be more resilient. I really like this effect, and I'm very surprised that the card price has dropped down, but I do know that it made it into, I believe it made it into some commander decks.
Yep. So Modern Horizons 3 commander version Ripple Foil is the one you're looking at right here. It kind of represents the top of the line right now. You've got your extended art in regular and non-foil, in non-foil and foil that you could potentially grab here. Did these extendeds come in foil actually? Yeah, you got a copy, a foil copy you can also get. So that's kind of your top of line there is your OG foil extended version. But right now, just lowest risk on a copy of a card that is going to be a budget way to double up on effects like Teferi's Protection, so that you can use this offensively as a win or use this defensively as a survival card. And I think that's why it's taken off so much, because it can be used as both for creature decks that want both.
And then next up we have Rise of the Dark Realms. This card has an all-time high price of around $30 way back all the way in 2020. And it's a good card. 2 black, 7 other sorcery speed. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. If you are in big mana and you are running black, rest assured, if the game has gone on long, there are going to be creature cards in graveyards. So being able to pay 9 mana to get all of them back from all graveyards under your control, it's a pretty big effect, and it's a big, splashy, fun commander effect being at 9 mana. It's like, if you get to 9 mana, sure, you go ahead and do something crazy, and then put it on us to figure out, oh, what do we do about this?
You can see the card doing what it is going to do until its next reprint. This is the most recent reprint version, special version, borderless from Foundations. Right now, you can see the chart is sort of moving upward on this card, but around $10, you're looking at, versions where with an all-time high of $30 with SLD copies existing in that 20, 30 range, it's a good pickup range for a card that will probably rise. These are, treatments that we may not ever see again. These kind of special versions from specific sets have a sort of, with the variant era and the booster fun era going hard still, have a sort of reserve list quality to them. And so if you want this Rise of the Dark Realms borderless from Foundations, best to grab it before it gets too far up there as far as price and starts to match some of the specialer versions that are out there, which it will do before too long. Past that, base copies, really insane low risk pickup range right now in that $3 to $8, depending on what set you're looking at.
And that just really speaks to how they're putting it, into commander decks and that kind of thing. And we're not saying that if you buy this card, it's going to double in price. We're not saying it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be $10. It's like, this is, if you've sat on wanting this card, we're letting you know now you can get it under $3 or right around 3.
You may have Vesuva enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any land on the battlefield. Have you got some insane utility land that is a main part of your strategy? Let's get a second one going. You've got a card here that was last reprinted in the Modern Horizons 3 Commander decks, and so just based on scarcity, pushing this card at one point up into the 20s for sure, maybe 30s. Right now, around $3. Really sweet Commander land if you know how to play it.
Yeah, holy cards that were used to push sets, Batman. I remember when this card came out from Time Spiral.
Yep.
Remastered, it was one of the main cards that were used to move that set. And you looking at this chart, you can just see it has massively fallen off due to scarcity. It is a very niche effect. It's specific, but for the people that want it, good for them. It is now extremely cheap. I can already hear someone in the comments going, oh, great, a game piece episode. And then Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. This was a card that was the card from Battle for Zendikar. Joel, I can talk forever about Battle for Zendikar because I spent way too much money on Battle for Zendikar.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, before this got its big reprint, it was very expensive. And then once it got its reprint, it became less expensive. It's pretty cool to see that Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, is under $20 for a copy. I mean, that's pretty sick. If you like Big Eldrazi, if you like this effect, if you like when it attacks defending player is going to mill a bunch of cards, well, then you're going to really love, or actually exile them.
Exile mill, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a backbreaker, dude. But you know what? For as much mana as it costs, it better be a backbreaker, and that's the reason it got extremely expensive. So, yeah, it's really cool to see this one being put on my radar now for the first time in a minute. Yeah, that's a pretty cool price. Thank you, Commander Masters, for kind of leveling things out. This probably saw a big pop when we got the Eldrazi decks, and you know, it'll be the kind of thing where you get the Eldrazi decks, it goes up, people are like speculating on it, but then when you get like a reprint, you know, obviously the price goes down, and that is just the nature of the beast in MTG. You can kind of predict the MTG market so much more than any other kind of market. It's like you spot these trends, and once you start to spot them, you know what's going to happen. Card is scarce, most likely Wizards of the Coast is going to figure out, if it's not reserve list, how and when is the best place to reprint it, and then how many variants is it going to get. We're long past the days of a card is reprinted and you get one version. Now you get the full treatment. You get an etched, you get a extended art, you might get a portrait version, you might get some special fancy, you know, gas guzzler version. I don't even know what those Aetherdrift cards are called, those specific versions, but you know what I'm talking about. Good card here. You
can almost plot people's interest in Eldrazi by looking at the charts, the last year charts for Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. You have got people who were fiending over, I need a copy, I need a copy, I need a copy. And now everybody's moved on. We're looking at different things. We're getting ready for our Universes Beyond sets later this year. And so now we are able to, you know, you might want to even go back and look at Eldrazi cards that you abstained from purchasing because they got so insane, just because now everyone's attention is sort of in a different arena. But those are what we've got for you for our great pickups in February. Let us know down in the comments if you've seen any great pickups. We'd love to talk to you about them.
Yeah, let us know if there's anything that we missed. We'd love to hear it. And yeah, if you enjoy these videos, if this is something that brought you value, if you're like, man, I like cruising for all-time lows, just know that this channel is built around helping players build their collection on a budget. We like letting people know if cards hit an all-time low, and we also like to let you know if a card's at an all-time high, so you don't go out there and buy it for $50 just to have it reprinted a couple months later down the line, and you're like, wait, boo, I spent $50 on a card that's now 15 to 20 bucks. It takes a long time to kind of be a well-rounded MTG consumer. I know that a lot of people here that watch this channel have been here a long time, but for the new folks, we do appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe if you want to be back in the future, catch another video like this. We would love to have you. And all of these names that you see scrolling, these are our patrons at the $10 level or higher that support the channel at that $10 level, and we really do appreciate all of you so much. You are helping us make these videos, and we hope you enjoy them. And above all else, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We appreciate you all.